that is your circadian rhythm, your biological clock. It controls not only your sleep-wake cycle, but your hormones, your digestion, everything happening inside your body. That is really delicate in women and can be turned out of balance. And when we're under chronic stress, it affects all of our hormones in our brain and our thyroid and our sex hormones.
Too often, Black women are a mere afterthought in conversations around wellness, but not in this space. On this podcast, the dialogue is always centered around women like you. Welcome to the podcast, but more importantly, welcome to the tribe. Be well, sis. So before we even hop into the book, I want to know what inspired your transition into focusing specifically on stress management and how it affects the brain.
Since we're here keeping it real, it was this is on the outside world, new in my career, to the untrained eye, it looked like Romie had made it. I entered neurology at a time where less than 5% of the brain doctors in America were women. Not only was I seeing patients, I was doing cutting edge research on women's hormones in the brain as it went to epilepsy and migraine. So doing research, seeing patients, teaching medical students, that I had become the doctor my aunties wanted me to marry. And silently, I had no words for what I was actually suffering inside. And back then, Cass, we didn't have terms like mental health issues at work or burnout. I would walk hallway corridors looking at other colleagues going, am I the only one suffering? Like, what did I do wrong? Why is this not working?
Right.
And I started to get chest pain. And, we'll put a link to my TED Talk that's now gone viral from back in 2014. And I was responsible. Initially, they told me it was just stress and acid reflux. And it turned out I was burning the candle at both ends, professionally and personally and spiritually. And that chest pain was chronic disease. And by the time we got diagnosed with the achalasia, it turns out I had precancerous lesions. And in 2010, ended up in life-saving surgery.
Wow.
And I'm in the hospital recovering, Cass. And I was like, nothing I've learned in medical school is going to help me now. And it put me on a global healing journey, realizing I had a busy brain from being an overachieving woman. And it led to burnout. And how am I going to heal myself? And I went through that mess so I can help you and the sisters in our community, your soul sisters, heal, because there is a path out. And that's why I do what I do. And so, back when TED Talks would go viral, that companies were like just starting to think about stress management, mental health, and they started to call me to speak. And then, all the symptoms I've heard you talk about on some of your other podcasts, because I was a listening sister, people started to come and be like, Dr. Romie, the mindfulness and meditation is not enough. I can't turn it off.
Right.
I'm wide awake until 3 a.m. I can't go to bed, like help. Or I fall asleep, but I wake up in the middle of the night. And I'm like, this is where the research started. And because the community was coming to me in the workplace, whether they were entrepreneurs or people that are employed, I am not here to be like, sisters, just eat berries and breathe and look at another reel of a baby hugging a puppy and everything's going to be fine. No, we are going to have Romie real talk today, Cass. So dig in and ask me everything.
Yeah. You know what I was thinking about when you were talking about just looking around at your colleagues and asking yourself, is it just you experiencing this? But you also mentioned that you are one of the 5% of female neurologists. I think gender and the way that we've been socialized plays a huge role in the level of stress and the expectations that is put on us that we have of ourselves as well.
Yeah.
I feel that men, when I look, generally speaking, when I look at men who are successful and high powered and achieving, they have a partner who is helping to do so many of the unspoken tasks.
Yes.
As women.
Thank you for saying that. Thank you. Oh my God. I mean, I didn't put this story in the book, but there was a male attending in my residency training. I was the only woman and he wouldn't talk to me, Cass. And he would look at me and I'm the senior resident on the floor, meaning underneath me are junior residents, interns, medical students. There's like a hierarchy, the nurses, the social workers. He would talk to the other men or the female nurses. And if I would speak up and say, Dr. Mushtaq, your senior resident, I remember his word being like, do you know where my wife it was this morning? She was at home making me and the kids breakfast when we left.
Ooh, disgusting.
So that was some of the misogyny, right? For the most part, though, in chapters 5 to 9 of the book, you read about the amazing male allies and sponsors that I had. But to your point, I think we don't say this loud enough as women to our allies and sponsors who are listening, is for the current work system, it doesn't matter what career you have, even if you're an entrepreneur, is built by the cisgender straight patriarchal model. And so they have a female typically at home playing this house giver, caretaker, and we don't think of like just the stress it is of you're running a mile a minute and it's the first of the month and you got to pay the mortgage and the utilities, that day. Something that simple,
Takes up mental real estate. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So talk to me about what is the busy brain. So we've talked about it, like we've mentioned it a couple of times. So what does that mean for the listeners who may not? Yeah.
Busy brain has nothing to do with what's on your schedule. What I see busy brain is if you feel these stress management techniques have failed you, there's a reason. Most of the advice that's out there is for acute stress. Chronic stress is our lives right now.
Yep.
So basically, what a busy brain is in high achieving people is when we're under chronic stress, it's a certain pattern of neuroinflammation. And I'm going to break down the science in a second for us that happens in a part of your brain known as the hypothalamus or airport traffic control tower. And with that chronic stress on the path to burnout, you get these 3 distinct symptoms. This difficulty focusing at work, wondering, do I got adult onset ADHD? Why is like multiple browser windows open all over the computers and phones and in my brain? Then you're feeling low-key anxious all day or frank anxiety attack. And then you're like, oh my God, I heard Romie and Cass on the Be Well Sis podcast today. I'm going to go stand on self-care. I'm going to do the sleep, 7-day sleep challenge, she said. And you put your head down on the pillow and there's 72 warring conversations going on in your brain and you can't fall asleep, or you fall asleep because you had a glass of wine or 3 or a sleep supplement, but you wake up somewhere between 2 to 4 a.m. and your brain is wide awake and you're like, let me do a load of laundry before the kids get up and knock out a few emails. And that's a busy brain. So in summary, it is difficulty focusing, all the way to ADHD, and as an adult, anxiety and insomnia. That is a busy brain. And high achieving men and women are more prone to it. And we're here to break down the brain and mental health in women.
Oh my goodness. Again, I feel like that was me. In full transparency, I woke up at 3 a.m. last night and the night before. I just woke up. I'm like, all right, well, I know I'm tired. My body is physically like, girl, go back to sleep. But my mind is like all the things that I need to do that I didn't get to. And has this been done? Has that been done? And I just could not shut it off.
That used to be me as well. Right.
Yeah.
And sometimes humanly, I still am, but we have the tools. I want to break down why that actually happens.
Let's do it. Yeah.
When we go to the airport traffic control tower of the brain, for the non-scientific people, that's known as your hypothalamus. That is your circadian rhythm, your biological clock. It controls not only your sleep-wake cycle, but your hormones, your digestion, everything happening inside your body. That is really delicate in women and can be turned out of balance. And when we're under chronic stress, it affects all of our hormones in our brain, in our thyroid, and our sex hormones. And the top 3 things that will disturb the airport traffic control tower of the brain that will wake women up. I'm going to lose a lot of soul sister friends here. Alcohol, number 1. Alcohol.
I know it. I did a little of a we'll call it a detox. I didn't drink for maybe 4 months because I know as I'm aging, I know my body doesn't tolerate alcohol the way that it used to. And I know it just wasn't doing me any good. So I would maybe have a glass of wine or so before falling asleep. And then I would still wake up with the same issues.
Thank you for talking about the alcohol and going through the detox. So people are going to do that. And then they're like, it's not enough. So can we break down the steps that I'm going to ask people to do?
Absolutely.
This is our free resource. This is how I did the research. We have something called the Busy Brain Test on my website. Get your brain score. My sisters, we know what our credit score is at any given time. But we never know our brain score. And we typically don't think about it until a loved one is diagnosed with dementia, and then we get scared.
That's true.
This brain score, it's a simple 20 questions that takes less than 4 minutes to do. and you get a score. And if your score is above a 30, we know you now have a busy brain, this neuroinflammation. And above a 50 means physical symptoms are happening. So number one, know your score. Then right away in your inbox, if you give an email, we give you the free 7-day sleep challenge. So part of it, we do ask you to either, like you did, Cass, cut the alcohol out. But if you're drinking more than 2 glasses a day, you're going to have to have cut it by half one week, half another, and kind of go down slowly, right? So you don't go through withdrawal, and you go through the 7-day sleep challenge. And we have supplement recommendations in there. I'm not selling my own supplement line, but we do have recommendations of brands that I trust as a doctor that can help to reset. That includes the magnesium and 5-HTP, that circadian rhythm. We put over 1,000 people through this protocol in our research period before I wrote the book. I will tell you, on average, people's sleep scores improved by 40% in under 2 weeks.
Wow.
Profound. And the first thing that would change was sleeping through the night.
Wow.
So really it is. And then I told you there were 3 causes. So one was alcohol. And if it isn't, and people go through the sleep challenge and they're like, Dr. Romie, I took the supplements. It's been 2-3 weeks. I'm still like clockwork. Most people who wake up in the middle of the night, have you noticed this is about the same time on the clock every night?
Yes. Yes.
Like randomly 3:37 a.m. And you're like, universe, what are you trying to tell me at 3:37 a.m.?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
If that's it, and your body is tired, but your brain is going, then I want women to check labs. And in chapter 16 of the book, we go through it, but really 2 important things is a full thyroid panel, and we're going to unpack this, and vitamin D3 levels, and then looking for polycystic ovarian disease, perimenopause or menopause. And we'll unpack all of that. But I really look at hormones and vitamin D3 then. And you can fix that and with the right medical care and be sleeping again. And where this happened from is I have a busy brain. It went unchecked. I kept pushing myself. And then, you can tip to burnout, and your brain and hormones that were fine. Now, all of a sudden, your brain is like, ding, 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 airport traffic control tower. We're going to cause dysfunction in her hormones. And that's what's going on. And it can be fixed.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, what's interesting as you're talking, I'm thinking about how what I'm going through, I've talked to my friends, it's like, yeah, I've been through that period too. I think it's because we're so used to us living in a culture that expects to live with chronic stress. So it's like, oh, this is normal, which is why there are so many sleep aids, whether it's over the counter or prescribed, all right, well, this is what we go through, especially as I'm approaching my 40s. It's like, all right, well, this is normal, perimenopause, all of those good things. But I'm happy that you mentioned the vitamin D3 as well as the thyroid. I feel like we don't talk enough about that. So
we don't. This is your wake-up call, my sisters, the alarmist in me and why I am here. You will read my gut-wrenching story of not being able to get pregnant and having polycystic ovarian disease. And I, as a doctor, telling male colleagues, could it be thyroid? And they just checked the TSH, T3, and T4, about 3 out of the 8 labs that you need to check. And they were like, no, you're fine. And I'm like, but man, I've never had a regular period in my life. My hair is falling out in chunks at this time. I'm all stressed out. Let alone I've never had a regular menstrual cycle. And it wasn't until I went to an integrative medicine doctor after I had surgery that they ran a full thyroid panel and found out that I have autoimmune disease. And it won't get picked up on those 3.
Yeah.
Why I am here, my sisters, if you have melanin in your skin, we are more likely to have thyroid issues with the chronic stress, with the nutrition issues, and everything that is out there. Right now in the US, we know with Caucasian women, it's 1 in 8 women likely has a non-diagnosed thyroid issue, either overactive or underactive. And if you have melanin in your skin, it's about 1 in 4 of us is walking around. And this was the one reason I wanted to be here on the podcast. We have the lab slip on my website, busybraincure.com. We have it in the book. Download it and demand that your primary care doctor or OBGYN check all 8 labs. And if they want to know why, give them a copy of this book, send them to the website, because all the medical references are there. And it could save your life, because I was 39 when I finally had a complete workup in an integrative medicine doctor. And they, both gave me bioidentical hormones for my thyroid. So I needed medication for what I have. And we changed my nutrition and supplements. And I was 39 and had my first regular menstrual cycle then in my life. But The thyroid, why this is so important, Cass, is most women that are walking around the way I used to walk around, or some of the symptoms you were telling me at the top of your podcast, kind of chronically stressed. Do I got to go get ADHD diagnosis? Am I anxious?
Mm-hmm.
40% of women who have thyroid disease, your only symptoms are ADHD and anxiety, mental health and brain
Jesus,
health symptoms.
that is me. My goodness. Okay.
Got it, right? So
Wow.
it's not hair falling out, acne,
Yeah.
difficulty losing weight. All those things could be real.
Yeah.
Hot flashes and you're only in your 20s or 30s going, what's going on? Like that can all be a part of thyroid and those things get caught. But again, most women, the only symptoms we have of a thyroid dysfunction is our brain. And we're told, you're just a tired working mom. Maybe you're not cut out for this job.
Yeah.
You need to give up that podcasting, Cass.
Yep.
Like that's what society will tell us and fight back. And so I feel so passionate. The second problem we have in the United States and around the world is these kind of labs were typically previously gatekept by integrated functional medicine doctors, and you pay thousands of dollars for access. Nobody can afford that.
Right.
And so the lab slip that is designed in the book is covered by most US insurances because we ran this protocol in 1,000 people. And if you're one of Cass's global listeners in Canada, in the EU, it is covered by your national health insurances. If you're in the United States and your primary care doctor won't, listen, on my website, we've partnered with Rupa Health, and just for like $300 or $400, you will get a doctor. You go to like a LabCorp request and they draw the blood and a doctor will give you the results. And these are like $5,000 to $6,000 worth of labs. So we figured out the system and I'm like, sis, please get it checked out. And so if your listeners are having these busy brain symptoms that you and I are talking about that I used to have, that you're currently going through, just a full thyroid panel and vitamin D3. And they're like, oh, I'm good. I'm going to check out of the podcast now. I got it done. No, full thyroid panel is there's 8 of them. And I guarantee you, unless you asked for it, the doctor did not check it.
Yeah, that's the truth. And, I'll give you a little bit more of my business. So a couple of years ago, I was feeling some fullness and I feel like I still can see the fullness in my thyroid area. So I went to my primary and she felt it. She's like, it does feel a little bit full. Let's go ahead and I'll do your TSH, T3, T4, right? Okay, fine. I did that. And I was slightly under, I think it was my actual thyroid hormones were a little bit below, but it was still within normal. And I had the ultrasound of my thyroid and the thyroid was slightly enlarged, but nothing too alarming to her. But I'm like, I still don't feel right. This is when everything first started for me, which happened to coincide with COVID. So we're like, well, maybe it's just the way life is going now is very different. Like you're in the house with your kids, working from home. Like it's just everything changed. So maybe it's just, your anxiety and your depression and your weight gain is like really linked to like the social things, that social atmosphere that we're having. So then I went, maybe like the next year, I had my annual checkup with my OB-GYN and I told her the same things. I'm just like, and now my period is a little bit off. Something is just not right. And she was like, all right, well, I can see that your primary ran those labs. You're more or less normal. So we're fine here. So I did not realize that there was a more extensive panel, so I have work to do. So I know exactly what I'm going to do.
Together. Just thank you for so candidly sharing your private medical information on this podcast. You and I having this discussion will save another sister's life. In chapter 16, people will read Kelly's story. Kelly was just like you and I. She was a high-powered sales executive. Her doctor actually was like, you're just anxious. Either you pick your young children or work. She was an award-winning sales director about to leave before getting a promotion. And this brain shift thing was happening with their company. And she's like, fine, I'll sign up. I'm leaving in 3 weeks anyway. She went to get the labs just because it was a competition in their office of everybody finishing brain shift. And same thing, they did the full thyroid panel and found out that it was abnormal. They sent her for her scan and got diagnosed with stage 1 thyroid cancer. And it was removed before anything serious. And she's back at work and healthy. And so by you sharing what you're going through, and I don't want you to beat yourself up because I can just see your energy going, oh my God, Dr. Romie, why didn't I talk to you sooner? Please know, for those of us dealing with chronic thyroid, it is very rare that like within the first 12 months these symptoms get diagnosed. You heard me say, like from the time I had my first period, which was age 11
Mhm.
until 39, I was dealing with these symptoms, and a high functioning, you know,
Yeah.
young child that got
Mhm.
into medical school, like, and all of that.
Mhm.
So it's going
Mhm.
to be okay. Trust that the universe made us have this conversation today
For
because you are
sure.
open to receiving. And yeah, full thyroid panel, ultrasound. Never let a doctor tell you, well, it's slightly normal or abnormal. We're not going to do anything, because
Mhm.
you're having all the symptoms.
Yeah.
And you are right. I want to go backtrack because we all just went through the pandemic. So external life can happen, but our
Mhm.
thyroid is there to support us
Mhm.
emotionally, right? So that our moods can handle a
Mhm.
depressing episode in our life, the
Mhm.
stress of having children at home during a pandemic. But if our
Mhm.
thyroid isn't functioning and healthy and we add chronic stress to it, it's kind of like I'm trying to draw from a gas tank that's one third full, and
Mhm.
we're going to go on a cross country road trip, and
Yeah.
it's not even going to get you to the interstate. It's not even
Right.
going to get you to the
Right.
South Carolina border.
Yeah. It's funny that you can read me so well. I mean, my face always tells what's going on the inside. But I guess in a way, I'm just like, well, dang, when it comes to my children, if there's anything slightly not perfect with anything with them, I am in the books. I am looking at the research. Like, I need to know exactly what's going on. But when it comes to myself, I think a lot of women, a lot of mothers, people who are very busy will put themselves kind of to the back burner and
We
make
do.
the focus who they're taking care of. And
Yeah. I think
did
that's
that.
normal, caregiving and love, but that isn't love, because that's the lesson we're teaching our children then.
True.
Our action, that
Hmm.
like my body, my mental health is not important. It's other people are more important.
Yep.
And we don't want that lesson with the global mental health crisis that's going on right now, especially in children, right? Number one. Number two, I'm not saying this for you, Cass, but for other
Hmm.
people, because I've certainly done that. Sometimes it's an avoidant behavior.
Ooh,
It's
yes.
like, I don't wanna go get my repeat mammogram, because what if it's bad news and I'm coming on a really busy season right now and
Yeah.
I don't have time for a biopsy? And
Yep.
then all the fears come up of, this. And so the same thing, brain is really scary, but I'm here to say, my sisters, I dug deep for you. We did the research. 17,000 people took the busy brain test so I could understand what's happening in the brain.
Hmm.
I had no life in COVID. I'm, divorced,
Hmm.
and I was single in COVID. So
Hmm.
my uh my life and hobby became reading medical research to find a solution. Then we did the research, and in 8 weeks we can get you on your way, including getting
Wow.
labs done. So
Wow.
it was like I wasn't about to come here and blow open a wound of busy brain and not have a solution. I'm an action-oriented doctor, and I'm like,
Appreciate
let's
it.
get it done. And if you want to do this 8-week protocol together as a part of the Be Well Sis community, I am here with you. We will go
I
through it
love that.
together.
I have a thought in regard to you working with organizations in order to make the employees well and just make it a better work environment. What is your take on the current culture? I feel like because of 2020 and 2021, mental health was to the forefront, right? Because of what was
Correct.
happening in the world.
Yeah.
And now that we're seeing, you know, we're going back to the office. And I think from what I'm seeing, it's a lot of the same stuff. We're reverting back to the older patterns. Do we see that corporate well-being and and well-being of employees is still at the top of mind for our big
Oh,
organizations?
absolutely, absolutely. When I go to meetings, there are hundreds of executives in the C-suite like me that have the title Chief Wellness Officer, Chief Health Officer in companies.
Hmm.
Nobody has the magic solution,
Yeah.
because you have to remember, like, I'm in hospitality, so our operations run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, just like hospitals.
Hmm.
The needs of teachers and first responders is different, and shift workers, like every, so
Yeah.
a workplace wellness program that is taking care of your mental health and physical health has to be customized to the industry and to the company culture, number one, right?
Hmm.
So return to office is loaded because every company is doing it differently.
Hmm.
What I think the answer I want to give your audience is what we know is working is having flexible work cultures and
Yeah.
cultures that are building on compassion and empathy.
Yeah.
So no longer can you have the workplace that you and I once experienced, or may some of us still experience, where they're like, if I'm staying till midnight, you're going to stay till midnight, like
Right.
whatever, all that toxic,
Mm-hmm.
things.
Mm-hmm.
What it is there has to be trust from a manager or a boss to say, you have a flexible work schedule. You come into the office, but gosh, if you're going to leave every day at 3 to go pick up your child from school, I'm going to assume you're working from home or you're coming into the office early. That's an example of a flexible lifestyle for working parents. Why this is important is because the US Surgeon General, Dr. Vivek Murthy, in 2020-21 released the reports of the state of the workplace and the danger of the mental health crisis in the workplace. And so this brought it to policy. So now it's affecting HR policy, government policy, healthcare policy. So again, nobody has that magic solution. All of us leaders are trying to do the best. But, bottom line, CEOs and CFOs are listening because there is hardcore data tied that if your employees are burned out, stressed out, mental health, they're not engaged, they're not productive, they're going to quit. And the beauty of today's world, this is why I love our Gen Zs and our millennials. They just don't go silently. They're like, I'm going to blast this all over Glassdoor, Indeed, TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, and the whole world is going to know. And then if one person opens the door to a toxic company culture, all of a sudden 300 other former employees are like, yup, I co-sign on that. And no company wants that. Toxic cultures are destroying companies. There are actual models out there. And so it's forcing CEOs and CFOs to listen. We have to do something. And so we know when mental health and physical health and safety are a focus in the workplace, people get to show up as their best selves. Then they're engaged at work. They're more productive. So business succeeds, So it's a win-win. So I think it's a topic. Now, there are a lot of people listening to this rolling eyes going, where does Romie live? Because that's not my workplace, right? Well, call me. I'm here. I speak for a living. I will come talk at your company. But remember, you could be stuck with a toxic boss or a personality conflict in your team. It may not be the whole company. And too often, if we've had a bad example, I tell you in my residency training, I had one doctor that spoke like that to me, but there were dozens of male mentors. I didn't have any female mentors back then that would never dare speak to me that way. You know, and so I wasn't going to say the whole hospital system or all of neurology was bad based on that one doctor.
Right. Yeah, for sure. So you're an entrepreneur as well. So you speak, so you have your own business. So a lot of the listeners are also entrepreneurs. And what I find is that many of us have left traditional corporate America or even academia because we didn't have that flexibility. But now I see, and I'm going to talk about myself, I'll be honest. The same things that I was running from, I'm inflicting on myself. My expectations are don't make any sense for myself, for any human. And so I was telling you last night, I woke up at 3 something in the morning. I had just gone to bed at 12:30. So it wasn't like I was in bed since 9, which is the goal. Because I was well, I have to get all these things done. I have to reply these emails and I have to get this outline and all of these things done. And I think we do the same things to ourselves as entrepreneurs. So do you have any tips outside of, we're all going to get the busy baby
let's talk about it. In the book, we call it the stress success cycle. So as an entrepreneur, most of us, I don't know about you, Cass, I was naive about how the one easy thing is no matter how bad your job is, the paycheck would come.
That part,
now, when you're an entrepreneur, you're like, I can't draw from my business or have a paycheck until there's revenue coming in, right?
Yep.
But when you have a busy brain, you are prone to something I call shiny entrepreneurial project syndrome.
Okay.
Rather than shiny object syndrome, it's shiny entrepreneurial project syndrome. So when you have a busy brain, you can't focus. And then there's this urgency to bring in revenue. And then there's so much information for entrepreneurs out there on podcasts like yours and social media and blogs and books. You're like, oh, wait, Cass has a podcast. She's successful. I should have a podcast. Dr. Romie researched and wrote a book. I need to write a book.
Yep.
And you get distracted and you barely start writing the book and you realize how hard it is, or you don't realize how hard it is to have a top podcast like yours and all the production that goes in. And then you quit and you start something else.
Yeah.
And when you heal that chronic stress and burnout, you are able to know in your business what is emergent, urgent, and what's a daily task. When you heal a busy brain, you remain focused. So if someone's dangling something like, Romie, start a
Yeah.
podcast, Cass, research
Yeah.
and write a book, you're
Yeah.
like, that's not my business model. What is my
Yeah.
mission? What is my vision? Where is revenue coming in on the table? That's where I'm going to focus. And I mean, let's have Romie
Yeah.
real talk. I'm going to tell you now, whether you are B2B like I am or you're B2C like Cass is, there ain't no viral Instagram reel or TikTok reel that is going to change your business overnight. Do not believe the people when they
Truly.
tell you that. That is
Truly.
not how you get business. That's social
Yeah.
proof. That is, sure, if
Yep.
you have a good lead gen funnel and everything that's been built and tested, those take time to build.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Mhm.
Yep.
And so most entrepreneurs, they have busy brain. What do? Ding! Let me see how many people liked my post from yesterday.
Yep.
Busted,
Yep.
sisters, busted. That's busy brain.
Yep.
No.
Yep. And you know what you've been describing is why a lot of us feel like maybe we do have ADHD, just we slip through the cracks as children. But to your point, it is just the brain is inflamed. The brain is like, slow down, it's firing.
So can I unpack that with you? Because people are going to wonder, yes, a lot of women, especially, we got missed as ADHD as children because girls as a whole tend not to be hyperactive and bad behavior. They may have been inattentive and they were labeled as withdrawn or socially awkward or something. I go through all of it in the book. And because on the digital devices. So I'm going to tell you what my business is like, Cass. I don't know about you, but we use ClickUp now instead of Asana. We have Slack channels. I have my email for the Brain Shift Institute. I have my email for Great Wolf Resorts. I have my cell phone and my business cell phone. And then there's the social media channels where people are DMing me or a member of my social media team, right? And that alone is so distractible, right?
Yeah.
But I knew I am on this interview with you and we are battling this cough from my pneumonia that we're healing, that my focus was hot tea, breathing, and this podcast. And I have all the other channels shut down. When you heal a busy brain, you are able to say, I'm going to be in my office for this 30 minutes.
Yeah.
This sprint, this is what I'm focused on, this podcast interview with Cass. Now, if there is an emergency in my business or in my family and my team members in my business know what that emergency is. So an emergency for me is an elderly parent in the emergency room. The house is on fire, God forbid, right? Your child, I don't have children, but if your child is having an emergency and is sick or hurt or needs you, that's an emergency.
Yeah.
Someone texting you to be like, hey girl, we haven't talked for a while. Can I pick your brain for coffee? That's not an emergency. Every one of my team members knows what an emergency is. The tech stack failed. The website went down, God forbid. There are legitimate emergencies. I'm traveling for a speaking engagement and the meeting planner is having an issue, or there's a weather pattern and I can't get to the city where I'm speaking. Those are emergent issues. And when you prepare for them as an entrepreneur, then we have SOPs so that I know what needs to be done. My team members know there's a bullet list of what do we need to do? God forbid the house is on fire.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's so good. So good. And it's just a reminder. And for me, sometimes it is my avoidant, traits that come up. So let me get a text. You want to do coffee? You want to do tea? Sure. Even though I know I have all these things to do because maybe I don't want to do them and just to distract myself for a bit. So yeah, super, super relatable. Yeah.
It's super. And I'm not saying
reminder.
don't go out and have tea, but first of all, I mean, you're too important and big of an entrepreneur to be letting anybody just pick your brain. There are the women you and I choose to mentor, our younger sisters, and that's fine. But, I charge for pick your brain time. And at this point, candidly, I'm so busy. We don't even do pick your brain time paid anymore,
no time.
right? So number one lesson for entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah.
Pay for what you need and pay for those services. And two, when you heal a busy brain, the 3 Ds come out. Could I go through that for entrepreneurs?
Let's go.
The 3
Yes.
Ds? I mean, people have heard that version before. It's the what do I need to do? What do I need to delegate? And what do I need to ditch? I promise you everything on your avoidant list, because I have them too. I have to do certain things. I have to show up for interviews. Nobody can do that for me, right? But I want to do that. Now, if I was someone that didn't like the camera and not speaking, then that's not going to be the way I communicate, right? We would be writing posts or something else. There's nothing wrong with that. There are the things you can delegate.
Yeah.
I loathe having to make social media posts and videos, and I delegated it. And sitting in my
Same.
office behind me is Ava.
Mhm.
It gives her joy. She is so talented on my
Mhm.
team when she does it. I'm so glad I delegated it to her and I made budget in my business to pay her because she's good at it. You can see the joy in it. And then there are the things you can just ditch in our
Yeah.
business. So you heard me use this example, ditching the idea that gets pitched to me all the time. Dr. Romie, do a podcast. And I ditched it. And I said, no, it doesn't make sense for my business. It's not,
Yeah.
there are aspects of doing a podcast you can delegate, like editing and production, but
Sure.
it just doesn't make sense for my calendar. And so we
Yeah.
ditched that idea.
Yeah. Not doing all the things. Yeah. Yeah. Just having a busy brain just makes you less efficient and less productive because like you can't think clearly. I think
Yeah.
one of my friends, she really grateful for her. She suggested that we meditate, and I'm just like, girl, I can't meditate because I can't sit still. I can't slow my
Mhm.
brain down. What
Mhm.
I've been learning in this challenge is I need to stop. Just stop whatever I'm doing. Because as I get anxious, as I have all the things to do, I get busier. And the busier is not necessarily that I'm doing anything that's going to help my business or help the family even, right?
Mhm.
And again, it just goes back to my busy brain.
Can we unpack that? Because that is
Yeah.
so real for everybody, right?
Mhm.
When you have a busy brain, it is really hard to be still and the anxiety comes forefront. That's week
Mhm.
4 of the brain shift protocol. We actually have sound healing recommendations. Sound healing will help the brain, and we have apps that we recommend that are thousands of people have downloaded this app in my keynote lecture. It's called Brainwave, and this binaural beats music that you put on. And when you need to do any task and focus, you put on this music and you just say, I'm going to do this one task, which is maybe craft a sales email as an example, right?
Mhm.
And you do that, and it'll get you to sit down and focus, or
Yeah.
to say, do I need to do the sales email, or can I give it to a team member, or could I run it through AI? Whatever that process is, but you're going to focus on that task. And so when we're anxious, we call it taking a brain pause. The first thing we say is step away from the scene of the crime, like put CSI crime tape on your office desk and get up and go do something that engages your sight, your sound, your taste, your hands, like go chop vegetables or fruit or do something and take a break. Then come back and ask, what is the one task I need to get done by the end of my workday? And put on the sound healing and get it done. And that's it. And if I'm going to do that task, I'm not going to answer emails or a Slack message or a text message unless it's a true emergency.
Yeah.
And I mean, look, I know I'm an auntie coming onto this podcast, but like if something in my life is an emergency, I normally get a phone call accompanied
True.
by a text from a team member or family member. So really the lesson here is busy brain. It'll wake you up in the middle of the night. My sisters, please go get your labs checked.
Yeah.
Please. Like your thyroid, your vitamin D3 levels, demand it of your doctor. Give them the symptoms.
Yeah.
The other side of it is my entrepreneurial sisters is Romie Real Talk is heal your busy brain and then legitimately think, where is revenue coming in right now from my business? Where is cash flow coming in? For me, that's my speaking and consulting. So my brain power, and then book is
Go
third,
there.
right? My brain power puts everything on my consulting as chief wellness officer and my speaking. So what are my personal priorities and that of my team are related to those things. And for that, we practice, heal your busy brain, do the do, ditch, delegate list, the triple D list, and then sound healing and brain pauses through the day.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
You're welcome, Cass. You know what? Thank you. I feel
Thank
poured
you.
into. And just
Thank you.
when someone is pouring into you the way you are, and I'm pouring back into you, that's how we lift the collective sisterhood.
Yeah.
Your community is so blessed to have you. Share this
Thank you.
episode, sisters, please, because
Yes.
busy brain, the mental health crisis is a problem, especially in women of
Yeah.
color. And
Yep.
we have a hard time getting our doctors listening to us. Sisters, please. And
Yeah.
we are here with the resources for you. We want to make it easy.
Yes.
And I want to give you the message that I wish someone had given to me when I was going into surgery. My sister, your brain is not broken. Your mind is not a mess. And your hope did not depart your soul.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're
Thank you. I'm
Thank
so
you.
grateful. I will definitely have all the links you mentioned down in the show notes as well. I love that it's actionable. It's not just theory. It's like, okay, what do we do about all of this? So thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for listening to this episode of Be Well Sis. If you'd like to get in touch with us, there's a link in the show notes. Be Well Sis is hosted by me, Dr. Cassandra Dunbar, and produced by Edit Audio. Don't forget to hit follow so you never miss an episode. Until next time, be well, sis.